So, welcome to the 1923 Grand Prix here at Sitges. We're back for another exciting round 3 of the championship this time. And I will be your host for the racing today, Pirate Laserbeam, here to provide commentary services to the great CVR community. And very pleased to be rejoining you for this round of the championship as we go into what is proving to be quite an exciting third round of the championship, based on the merits of how this track compares to the previous round we had at Tours. So a little bit about this circuit. Last weekend, or last race weekend I should say, it's 4 weeks ago now, we were at Tours racing through the villages and the countryside on a relatively flat, triangular kind of shaped track with a few kind of very tight, challenging corners, quite low speed in most cases in towns, a few high speed corners out in the countryside. But nothing at all akin to what we're about to see today. As you can see, we're at a highly banked, oval-shaped circuit, a bit of a shape like a kidney bean, to be honest. So, high-speed cornering, very high banked corners, no safety barriers at the top, and a little bit of a kink on the back straight, but otherwise a relatively straightforward circuit from the point of view of the layout. But that isn't to say it's a not a challenging track to drive for these brave drivers who are taking these cars for a spin today. As you can see, there's nothing to stop you from flying over the top of the banked corners and driving in close proximity to other drivers will most likely present plenty of opportunities for potential accidents. Earlier on, while the stream was running and I was just getting a few things prepared, we saw a Fiat go flying over the top of the barrier, and that's certainly going to be a risk for some of the drivers here today. The weather outlook for today's race is pretty straightforward. It's going to be mostly cloudy for the duration, with a 20 degrees or so temperature, 21 degrees in parts, 36 degrees track temperature with a slight headwind of 3 kilometers an hour. Track grip is around 96% currently. We're in for an absolute treat today. There's 200 rounds of, or 200 laps of racing to be had here at Sitges, and that's going to hopefully provide us with a lot of interesting content as we go into the third round. Talking a little bit about the progress since the last round then. So we've had a few changes in the car lineup, with a few drivers taking the option to trade or buy different cars. So just taking a quick look at those. So Kai Severston unfortunately declared bankrupt after the previous round due to crashing their car and having a second consecutive DNF as a result of that crash. That meant that they got no finishing prize. However, they were able to secure some additional funding and get a fresh start in the Bugatti T32. The Bugatti is going to be a key theme of what I'm about to tell you. So FJQ Magias sold his Voisin and purchased the Bugatti T32. JC Lamour had to sell his many times crashed Delage and has now bought a Voisin C6. He's bought that from Magias, who sold his for the Bugatti T32. Mosse Pereira sold his Fiat 804 and purchased a Bugatti T32. Again, that Bugatti, a common choice for the drivers here. Hayley Johnson has sold her Roland and has bought a Delage. Torsten Bale has bought a Bugatti T32, and then Marco Cossi entered the series as a new driver and has done so by buying a Delage. The following drivers didn't get a finishing prize in the last round, as that includes Zam Darling, Roma Grosjean, and then Kai Severston, and they were all DNF'd as a result of teleporting to the pits during the race. And then the following drivers have had to pick up a bit of a repair bill following the previous round. So V Tolonen had a 5,000 credits repair bill for a 50 km/h crash. FJQ Magius, 20,000 credits in total for 3 crashes. Mountain Jar, 20,000 credits for 2 50 km/h and 1 100 km/h collision with the environment. Dan Darling, 10,000 credits for a 100 km/h collision with the environment. JC Lamour picked up a 30,000 credits. That's the largest of all of the repair bills, and that's due to 3 100 km/h collisions with the environment. So that's going to have been a bit of a fender bender if ever I saw one. Mosse Pereira, 15,000 credits for a 50 km/h impact and a 100 km/h impact. I think practice is just finished. Kai Severston, 5,000 credits for a 50 km/h collision, and then Anssi Heitinen had another 5,000 credits repair bill there for a similar 50 km/h collision. So, as I mentioned, Sitges is very different in nature to Tours. We have a significant gearing towards the high-speed cars having an advantage here, so that's going to make your supercharged 1923 Fiats and the Bugattis, the Sunbeams, and the Delage being potential contenders. I think nothing is going to quite touch the Fiats in terms of top speed, but the overheating issues may be something which balances that element of the field. Anyone who's in a Vorsan or any of the 22 cars might struggle a little bit today, given they have slower top speeds, and that's going to be very important. But the most important thing is going to be where to make overtakes happen. As you've been witnessing, the curved nature or the banked nature of the corners here means that to get the highest speed through these corners, you really want to be at the very top of that curve, which presents a risk in itself due to the potential for flying over the top. But any cars trying to overtake you will have to do so on the lower line, and that means that they're not going to be able to get through that corner with as much speed. So I think the key thing here is going to be the overtake on the straight due to slipstreaming, getting a good exit from the corner, slipstreaming straight away, and then trying to turn that into an overtake. So the starting grid is going to be as follows. We've got E. Mikkola in first place, L. Fontaine in second place, M. Peltonen will be in third place, FJQ Magius in fourth. We've got A. Henry on the second row in fifth place. We've got R. Lazaro in sixth place. Haley Smith will be in seventh place. Row 3 will include V. Tolonen on the far left. We've got H. Pakkanen in 9th place, J. Lindholm and T. Lumboriski will be 10th and 11th respectively. Row 4 will include E. Nurmi and Lippi and M. Kossi in 12th to 14th, and row 5 will include P. von Rosen, Kai Severston, K. Uatila, and then A. Heitinen in the 5th row. Row 6 will be Z. Darling, Roman Grosjean and M. Pereira, bringing up the 19th to 21st positions. We will have a rolling start. It's going to be a flying start in single file, with the lead driver starting the race once they hit the line at full speed. So the 4-a-side configuration that you see right now won't be how the drivers will be crossing the line. I can only imagine the chaos if the cars went 4 wide into the first corner. So I think the single file start is probably going to be the wisest way of approaching this situation. Yeah, 200 laps to go, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the overtake strategies, pit strategies and so on come into play here. One thing that's been noted in the driver briefing is that the Fiat 805 is a clear favourite for the racing today for a podium, but the Sunbeam can be surprisingly good due to it being a reliable workhorse. Any car can have a good change for position with good luck with the tyres, lack of accidents and the overall starting position given the single file start. So we could be in for quite a tight race compared to how things were at Tours. Nurmi, Peltonen, Tolonen and Kokarski are all favourites due to their position in the Fiat. But we'll have to see how things go. It could be anyone's race given the potential risk of flying over the top of those banked corners. So the formation lap underway currently as we start the racing here at Sitges in the first of 200 laps. 21 brave souls on the circuit today. So interestingly, Mikola is in the Sunbeam, and therefore it's not a Fiat who's going to be leading us down the beginning of the race here. And what's also interesting is that whilst Marcus Peltonen is in the Fiat 805 405, Fontaine is in the Delage, so it's not a straightforward Fiat starting grid here, but they do have a strong chance of finishing this race. And there we go, off to the races as E. Mikola starts the racing here. But look at that, Marcus Peltonen is already looking to get down on the inside. I think this is the only time you'll see an undertake working here whilst they're getting up to speed. I think once they're at full speed, that's a manoeuvre that's going to be a really difficult thing to pull off. But they're side by side as they head down at almost 170 kilometers an hour into the second of the two banked corners, and now lower down Marcus is going to find themselves working a little bit harder than Mikola is potentially, but the Fiat is already starting to prove its dominance here, and we can see in the back there that Visa Tolonen in the other red Fiat 805 405 is getting the advantage of that Fiat out in the early stages of this race. For the time being though, Marcus Peltonen is starting to open a bit of a gap. It's E. Mikola though who is holding on in between here between B. Tolonen and Marcus Peltonen. The two Fiats split currently by a Sunbeam. And as they start to get up to top speed, this is where taking that optimum line or optimal line through the corners is going to become ever more important. And how brave the drivers will be in terms of pushing their car to the top of that banked corner may decide how things turn out in the racing to come. You can see in the background there a couple of cars so high up on the banking, and here's V. Tolonen executing the second overtake of the race with the Fiat 805 405 getting through again, doing so through an undercut, while Mikola here in the number 12 continues to try and hang in here. It's Haley Smith though in their new Delage who is starting to make some gains here on E. Mikola. And you can see them actually dancing around behind the green number 12, looking for an opportunity. Giving it some thought on the outside there, but deciding to drop him behind once again. We go to the onboard view with Haley Smith. You can see the exit from the corner, and the slipstream having some of a part of an effect here, but not quite enough. But they are starting to get through, and I think the third overtake out the front here is beginning to happen. In the background you can see Nurmi in another 805-405. Haley taking the high line into the corner there. Will probably get a significant advantage over E. Mikkola, and you can see E. Mikkola now under threat, not only from Haley Smith's overtake, but the likes of Nurmi's Fiat coming through. And E. Mikkola, starting the race in first position, is now down in fifth. Onto the 7th lap already, and Nurmi is starting to ease up behind Haley Smith Delage here. The raw power of that supercharged Fiat is going to be a real challenge for the likes of Haley to contend against, and I think whilst the Fiat was getting alongside there, they might have just eased back a little bit to not risk going through an undertake into the second corner there. But now on the run down to T1, you can see Nurmi here in the Fiat, sitting right behind Haley Smith's Delage. Gosh, you must have had to be so brave to drive one of these things at this speed through those corners on those tyres. But here's the overtake attempt from Nurmi. Gets through relatively straightforwardly. Doesn't have to do the undertake in the corner because they're now ahead of Haley and can control the corner there. And that puts the 3 Fiat 805-405s to the front of the pack, as was predicted in the briefing document. Let's take a quick look back down here as we just see the number 66, driven by Darling, skidding out of turn 2 and making a bit of a smoke screen as they come up past the pit lane. Didn't seem like they had any damage, they managed to hold on to that, but the number 12, which is M. Pereira, is now racing alongside with Uatilla and Lippi. Lippi, I think, is in the last of the 22 cars, and they're doing well to keep some of the other cars further back at bay, but they will ultimately suffer with their lack of power here, given they're up against 1923 cars. So, Uatilla still putting the pressure from his Delage down onto Henry, and in the background you can see M. Pereira in the Bugatti hanging on there as well. Potential overtake here from Uatilla, although he's actually a little bit further back. Camera playing tricks on me again. But a good exit here is crucial to having a chance at overtaking. So, E. Mikkola overtaken by Jay Lindholm. Lindholm, of course, driving the Delage. And Mikkola drops down to P6. We've also got Heitinen and a Delage driven by Lubomirski. They go into turn 2. The Bugatti's on the outside. Haven't seen people going as near to the top of these banked corners in the race session thus far, but there were certainly some people pushing the limits of that in the practice session. But the strength of the Bugatti's engine helping to carry Itonen here further and further away from the delage. Uatilla managing to sneak alongside a Bugatti there, driven by Emperor. I think Emperor was giving it a little bit of a shot, but hasn't quite managed to get through just yet. Up ahead you can see that Alazaro is now under pressure from M. Cossi. But again, managing to hold position through the corners. "14 laps complete already." E. Mikkola under pressure from Heitinen again. The Bugatti slotting in behind for slipstream. Will Heitinen get a good exit from the next corner? Apologies. Yep, there we go. Heitinen alongside, manages to ease the Bugatti through just as they go over the line, and manages to enter the next corner ahead of Mikkola's Sunbeam, which means that they are now free and clear to keep pressing on. I think that Bugatti's top speed is definitely proving advantageous here. Further up the grid, we've got V. Tolonen in the Fiat being actually pressured by Haley Smith Delage. And as they come through those steep banked corners, it's only 0.3 of a second. At the moment, it's V. Tolonen who seems to be getting a little bit of a slipstream run on Nurmi. And I think we might have a little bit of Fiat on Fiat action, but he's through the corner. It's Haley Smith in the Delage who seems to be making the most of those corners, and I don't know if it's a slight cornering advantage for Haley Smith there, or if they just found the right line in the slipstream. But they are holding on to the two Fiats up ahead of them, despite the power differential. Once more into the corners, let's go to an onboard view with Haley Smith and see if we can see how things look for the exit. So close yet so far for Haley Smith. But despite a 7th place start for Haley Smith, they're now up in 4th, so doing well in the opening stages of the race, but tyres and fuel and concentration levels are probably all higher right now. It's a long race ahead, and I think we'll start to see overheating issues, lapses in concentration and so on start to shape this race as we go forward through the latter half. Alazaro just executing a nice little overtake there on Emperera, but Uatilla is in the mix as well, and the three drivers jostling for position, with the number 12 driven by Alazaro doing well to come out in front. Uatilla also getting through alongside the Bugatti, and the Bugatti will be forced to take the lower line through the next corner, which will put Uatilla in an advantageous position, but Uatilla going so high on the banked corner. The Bugatti managing though to hold on, but it's the exit speed which is the crucial piece, and you can see Uatilla is blasting away now with a little bit of extra speed out of the corner, whereas Bugatti is now in jeopardy from Henry, who's coming up from behind. And Henry manages to use that speed to get an overtake, but he's going to have to go down on the low line for the next corner, and that should put Emperera in a pretty good spot. See, during the corner it's fine, it's the exit speed where this becomes crucial. And you can see here from the inside camera that the Bugatti does have the inside line for the next corner. Doesn't quite get there in time though. Leitner and Nurmi going toe to toe as the Bugatti gets past the Fiat. As lap 22 commences, we've got Jay Lindholm in the Delage also getting past Nurmi's Fiat. I think Nurmi might be in a little bit of trouble here. They've dropped back significantly. I don't know if this is overheating issues or some other issue impacting the Fiat, but you can see their lap time is significantly down, and I wonder if they might be heading for the pits. Definitely slowing down significantly here, and they are heading towards the pit lane. So Nurmi potentially dropping quite significantly now on the back of this potentially unexpected pit stop. 23 laps in and pitting already can only be an unplanned pit stop. And they find themselves now down in 16th place. Meanwhile, number 54, Lazaro, takes the inside line, holding their own against Uatilla's attack here. Up ahead you can also see Pekkanen and Kossi going toe to toe as well. But for the time being, it's Lazaro who holds the 12th position, while Uatilla continues to try and find a way through. Uatilla trying to slingshot around the outside there. They do have a bit of a speed advantage here. Drops to the inside line as they head into turn 1. And Uatilla is now side by side. But here's where the exit speed is going to be crucial, and I think you're going to see Lazaro break a pretty significant amount of distance away. You can see that's half a second already. That's the impact of the lower line through those corners. You'll be there at the end of the corner side by side, but you will then be well behind by the end of the next straight, just due to that speed. Elfontaine, I think another car slowing down potentially. I don't know if they're trying to get to the pit lane, but they can't quite get over in time, but they're slowing down as well. Now we have Megias in the Bugatti 53, trying to push an advantage here against Lubomorski. Nurmi now 1.1 laps down. I think that's Nurmi just leaving the pit lane there on the left-hand side of the track, right-hand side of the screen. Meanwhile, Leitner in the Bugatti, attempting to push an advantage here against Peltonen, or against Haley Smith actually. Haley Smith up in second place right now. Haley in third place currently, but Marcus Peltonen is in the pit lane now. Meanwhile, the battle between Mikkola and Oh, big spin there for Lubomirski. That is going to be a little bit of contact. I think they've lost the right tyre as well. Yep, they've got a flat tyre, rear right. And they're now facing a little bit of the wrong direction. That's going to be bad news for Lubomirski. Meanwhile, Uatilla and Lazzaro continue to go toe-to-toe. This time it's Uatilla going in to the corner with the advantage ahead and not having to do so on the lower line. But Lazzaro trying to find a way to shoot back. They're a little bit on the inside here, but not far enough. Like they're about a car length behind at the moment. So maybe no risk of an overtake just yet. But as they go into the first corner, you can see the number 12, driven by Henry, is now starting to get on the action here. Heitinen and Haley Smith have traded places, with Haley Smith now in third. And the Bugatti, driven by Heitinen, is now through to second place. This might explain why so many people switched over to the Bugatti. Wow, there's a lot of action there. There's a big contact between Lubomirski, sorry, Lazzaro, Henry, and I think Uatilla have been caught up in that accident as well. Now I stand corrected, it's actually... yeah, Lazzaro off the track there. It's Pekkanen. And both drivers struggling to get underway again. Lots of mud coming up off the back of Pekkanen's car, and Lazzaro struggling as well. Got a rear right puncture, and both drivers are definitely struggling to get their cars underway here. Of course, if they do return to the pits, then they will find themselves DNFing, but with a flat right tyre, I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to get out of here in time. Then they're going to have to just try and very gently get on the power. But there's not much room for manoeuvring here before you get a wheel spin happening. I'm going to stay for a moment with these guys, see if they can get their cars back underway. Looks like Pekkanen's gone a little bit more into the ditch than they perhaps wanted to, and Lazzaro manages to get themselves rotated and slightly underway with a bit of momentum. Maybe they can get up here, but I think they're now wedged well and truly up against the fence, and at the moment it looks like they might be getting themselves wedged up into the car in front as well. You see, in the ditch, things aren't going well for these two drivers. Not sure what they're planning to do here, but they are slowly moving. Anyway, back to the action. Uatilla in 7th place continues to hold off Pereira in the Bugatti. And current running order is Viitolainen, Heitinen. 3rd place held by Haley Smith, Jay Lindholm in 4th, Mikkola in 5th place, McGears up in 6th, Uatilla now 7th place, which is a great comeback considering where they started. I believe Uatilla was 17th at the beginning of this race, and with 34 laps in, they are now running in 7th. Pekkanen's back in the pit lane, but I think Lazzaro has decided to persevere with their endeavour. They must be getting a lot of heat into that engine right now. I don't know if they're trying just to get to that hill up ahead and then they might be able to get back on track, but they have got a long way to go. Darling in the 66, who span out earlier on in the race, is now back to 13th place, having recovered relatively well on the back of that. And at the moment it's only one of the Fiat 405 805s, which is driven by Tolonen, is in the top 3. In fact, Nurmi is now down in 12th place. Uatilla having been overtaken there by the 66. But the 66 actually is a few laps down, I believe. Not actually fighting for position currently. So as it stands, the Fiat 805 driven by Tolonen is the only one in the top 10. The next Fiat 805 happens to be Marcus Pelton. That's down in 14th place right now. Nurmi is in 12th place in the Fiat, so definitely a challenging race for those Fiats. Despite, oh, look at that! I think Lazaro is back under power, having persevered and got out of the ditch, and they will now be nursing their car back to the pit lane with the wheels spitting sparks from the rear right. But they are still in this race, and it's not over just yet. They're still technically ahead of some other drivers, and I think they'll be getting themselves into the pit lane to get repaired. And they will then be able to continue the race. There's still 160 laps to go. However, Uatilla is now in the pit lane. Planned or not, I'm not sure. But their battle will have to take a little bit of a back seat whilst they get their car sorted out. But here we are with our race leader, number 9 car, driven by V. Tolonen, the Fiat 805 405. Still only 1.8 seconds ahead of the nearest competition, which is the Bugatti. And you can see Haley Smith is a further 4 seconds behind as well. Bit of a blend of cars in different positions now on different laps, fighting through the corners, so it's not immediately obvious who's actually fighting for position. But the drivers definitely have to navigate through, I guess, what you could call traffic here at Sitges. Haley Smith running in clean air at the moment, no such traffic issues for Haley. Nurmi overtaking Uatilla with a burst of speed. I think Uatilla still may be getting up to speed, and they are proving to be a little bit of a mobile chicane right now, as the 53 Bugatti tries to take the low line, but they're definitely going to be struggling there. The 66 Bugatti, driven by Darling, overtakes, but not for position. And they continue their run through as Uatilla and Darling are jostling for position now. 0.2 of a second between the two of them. Alazaro back in the race and underway. Uatilla and the Bugatti though continue. Don't think we've seen anyone go over the top of a barrier yet. That will certainly be a bad time. Oh, Lippi and Nurmi. Nurmi's back underway and overtaking. It's the number 66 Bugatti versus Uatilla, which we need to watch for the time being. That being said, Emperera and Megiers are changing positions right now. Back to Lippi. Just getting overtaken there by Uatilla, and I think Darling and the 66 Bugatti going through as well. Emperera in the number 12, sorry, number 11, is side by side with Henry in the 12. And Henry looking to take the lower line here. He has got room or scope to go up to the right, but decides not to. That's going to slow their exit speed a little bit. And you can see the Bugatti up ahead just walking away. Quite a bunching up of cars now. Here's the battle between Uatilla and Darling, continuing there with the bright pink Bugatti. Darling's alongside and will enter the corner potentially ahead, but they have the lower line. They are attempting to move up to take the higher line. That's going to force Uatilla potentially to take the inside line on the next straight. They're looking to slipstream a little bit, but they don't quite get there in time. Emperera overtaking Megiers in the two Bugattis. Megiers in the yellow 53. And they continue to barrel along. Just approaching quarter race distance at the moment. It's like Emperera taking the extraordinarily high line there, but manages to shake a little bit of Megiers' advances there. 0.2 of a second, but then the slipstream undoing that good work. Henry in the number 12 though, in the mix with the two Bugattis. Will he be able to close this gap at all? Seems to be getting a little bit closer. It's actually Tolonen in the Fiat who's leading the race. Henry on the inside, attempting to ease past Megiers and manages to make that work just before the entry to the corner. But V. Tolonen is forced to take the lower line here against the Bugatti. Manages to get through. Megiers, not having done too well there, loses two positions. Well, one position and getting lapped by the race leader, I should say. Meanwhile, Hayley Smith and Jay Lindholm battling side by side. We haven't seen these two battling for some time now, but they're both in the delage. And side by side at the exit of the corner. Will that give Hayley the speed advantage down the straight? Potentially. Haley's also getting a little bit of slipstream help from the Bugatti ahead. And Haley goes into the next corner ahead of Lindholm with the speed advantage out their side. And I think they're not quite close enough to get full slipstream, but they're definitely getting some. '50th lap just started, ladies and gentlemen. That's quarter race distance completed. And at the moment it's Haley Smith and Jay Lindholm separated by 0.4 of a second, as A. Heitinen's Bugatti ahead of them is again only 0.4 of a second ahead. Looks like Haley Smith starting to close the gap a little bit, but it's Jay Lindholm who gets the great exit. Eases straight past Haley Smith there without any issues at all. Haley's lap delta increasing a little bit here as they seems to be losing some speed, and it's Jay Lindholm who does the double overtake here, manages to get past but not only Haley Smith but also A. Heitinen, and Jay Lindholm enters the 51st lap of this race in second place. Nice little double overtake there for Jay Lindholm. Oh, Peltonen in the Fiat has just managed to wangle past Lippi. And in the background just saw a little bit of that pink number 66 Bugatti driven by Darling. So Heitinen on the attack again. Losing out a little bit on the straights here. I think Lindholm's just absolutely nailing the exits. And Heitinen continues to try and find a little bit of extra speed to keep up with Jay Lindholm, and here's the slipstream potential. I think that's Magius' Bugatti up ahead. Lindholm's getting a little bit boxed in, but they found a way through. I think that's Haley Smith there in the background. Still in hot pursuit. Henry and Pereira have just traded places, with Pereira just dropping behind the number 12. Heitinen is still attempting to retain a close distance behind Jay Lindholm right now. Seemingly not an easy task, as Lindholm continues to make ever-increasing gains as they break away, and as the slipstream opportunity falls away, I think Heitinen is going to be in into a bit of a hard time trying to keep up. If it wasn't working with the slipstream, it's very unlikely to be working without it. M. Cossi down in 14th place, now under pressure and being overtaken by Lubomirski. Lippi is fighting back despite being in the 1922 car. But I think Lubomirski is now through, and the opportunity has potentially escaped them. M. Cossi though overtaking Lippi as well. Lippi now down to 15th place. Quite a bit of traffic now going through the corners. Is that Nurmi? Yep, it's Nurmi in 11th place in the Fiat 805 405 supercharged. There's been an overtake from Mikkola and Heitinen. Heitinen seemingly heading into the pits, I would suspect, based on the current strategy that I'm seeing being employed here. Either that or they've had a little bit of an issue, because they're 6 seconds down, and that's only getting worse right now. So with 59 laps completed, a Fiat leads the race, but Jay Lindholm, Haley Smith, Mikkola and Heitinen are all in other cars, and the Fiats have been split now quite significantly. Marcus Peltonen down in 12th place, Nurmi in 11th place. Only Tolonen seems to be getting the most out of the Fiats today. So as we enter the mid-course of the race, and latterly we'll be heading into the final third of the race, that's where the tyres, the overheating, the fatigue will start to set in, and I think that's going to take an interesting turn as the risk of accidents increases. Hopefully we don't see anyone DNFing as a result, but we've definitely lost at least one driver to a mistake, as we saw with Lubomirski. Actually, it was Lazaro, sorry. Lazaro and Pekkanen. Lazaro managing to get back underway, but there may be more mistakes to come from other drivers, and we may see the running order change as a result of that. Drivers getting a little bit more spread out now compared to the last few laps, so might have to wait and see who's going to be gaining on who. Looks like Emperor is still about 2.8 seconds behind Henry at the moment. Haley Smith starting to get a little bit closer to Lindholm, but still a good 2 seconds in it, and then Tolonen is a good 12 seconds behind, or ahead of Lindholm, sorry. So as we have a little bit of a moment here between battles, let's take a little bit of a second to discuss the cars being driven here today. So the Fiat 805, clearly the fastest car as it's supercharged, giving it a lot more of a power advantage over the other cars. Potentially a 200 km/h top speed. I don't think we've quite seen that being employed by any of the drivers just yet, although Tolonen here at about 180, 185 at some points. The engine, however, can be quite unreliable, and the cooling is definitely an area of weakness for this car. So we've seen some of these Fiats actually pull over to the side of the track in previous races at Tours, for example, and all that advantage from the speed is then immediately offset by the fact that they've had to slow down and stop in some cases for quite a large amount of time. It's also the most fuel thirsty due to the supercharger as well, so a bit of a double-edged sword, the supercharger. And it will use about 36 litres of fuel per 100 kilometres driven, while the rest of the cars here will use about 10 litres less. And that means that by definition the Fiat will 100% have to stop for fuel today, whereas some of the other cars may not necessarily have to do so unless it's planned or they have cooling issues. The other issue with this Fiat is that the gearbox can be a little bit on the weak side as well, and that may be an issue, but the tyres should be fine for the whole race length as long as they don't get any unexpected punctures. Just looking here at Heitinen continuing to battle. You've got Uatilla and Darling back at it again, with Uatilla's time overtaking. But it's Heitinen versus Mikkola where the action seems to be right now. Of course, Mikkola here in the Sunbeam. Sunbeam's quite on par with the Delage when it comes to performance. It's however by far the most reliable car of the season, so the mechanical issue shouldn't be the issue so often with the Sunbeam. Heitinen trying to find a way around the outside right now. Takes a slightly higher line, but has to lock in behind the Sunbeam one more time. The Delage 2LCV, pretty agile and fast car, but has some reliability issues in the engine department. Hits about 185, and we're seeing that here today, and good gearing, so it has excellent acceleration. Although acceleration being less important compared to top speed here today. Meanwhile, the Bugatti, which we see Heitinen driving, is almost the same top speed as the Delage and the Sunbeam, but it has a smaller fuel tank and hence smaller range. Very agile car in the low speed corners. That won't really apply today though. But on high speed corners its design generates some lift that makes it pretty understeery in high speed corners and giving it pretty unique handling. It has probably the hardest time keeping the engine cool as its radiator is not very good. So we might see some of the Bugattis struggling as the race continues. The Vauxhall C6 Laboratoire, I don't think we've seen any of those in the session today, but they do suffer from being the slowest of the 23 pack with less power. But the gearing's not too bad, so that can help in some certain situations. Pretty good range as well, but it is also unreliable, so that may start to be an issue for some of the drivers who continue to drive that. Going back to Darling and Nurmi now. Nurmi's back on the push for positions, back up to 10th place now. Looks like Lindholm in the mix there between the 66 car and the Fiat with Nurmi driving. So far we've had one pit stop from Tolonen, one from Haley Smith, the live timing screen tells me that Mikkola has pitted 28 times, but that can't be true. Tolonen coming into the pits though, so that means that they have come in for fuel potentially. If they've had to fuel at 70 laps, they may have to fuel again before the end of the race, assuming that's the reason for the stop. but they are holding on to third place for the time being. They're about to lose that third spot to Mikkola though, and here come the rest of the drivers now. Tollen starting to drop down quite significantly, down to 5th place, and they're now underway again, but they're going to take a little bit of time to get up to speed, and that puts them at jeopardy of Henry and Pereira next. They might be able to hold off Magias though. Going back to Mikkola in the Sunbeam, under pressure from Heitinen's Bugatti. As they exit the first corner, you can see Heitinen doing everything they possibly can to keep up here. Even with slipstream though, they are struggling. 0.2 of a second separating the two drivers as they go down the back straight. Can Heitinen find any advantage here through the corner? Still about 0.2, maybe just potentially dropping down to 0.1 momentarily. But Heitinen has definitely got their work cut out for them here. I'm not sure what it's going on about with Mikkola. It says they've pit stopped it 29 times now. That must be an error. Most of the drivers seem to have had at least one pit stop, which again I'm not entirely sure I believe. I wonder if it's counting it as a pit stop due to how close to the pit lane they drive. But for the time being, Heitinen continues to put pressure on Mikkola, but the extent to which they can push that advantage remains to be seen. And you can see from the in-cockpit camera, Heitinen is just forever watching the rear end of the Sunbeam ahead. Improving slightly on their lap time here, but even with the slipstream they are very, very, very slowly getting closer. It's not seemingly enough to turn that into an overtake. I wonder if there's any scope for them to take a slightly higher line through the corners, or whether it's better to stay in the slipstream. As you can see, Mikkola actually driving quite close to the pit lane there. That might explain why it now thinks they've done 30 pit stops. Heitinen here continuing to put the pressure on. If nothing else, this will be helping their fuel economy, given they aren't having to split the air. That's a job they've left to Mikkola. But this will certainly be putting a little bit of pressure on Mikkola from a mental perspective, as they constantly have to keep an eye on where Heitinen is. And that'll be splitting their focus a little bit. It may induce a mistake. We'll have to see whether that happens. Heitinen now just getting to 0.1 seconds again, but then having to drop back a little bit. It just seems like they can't seemingly get through. Unless there's a change of strategy from Heitinen here. I think their only option really is to go higher through the corner, but at the moment they seem to be taking the slipstream option. Of course, it may be the case that Heitinen makes the mistake, and then Mikkola will be able to rest easy. Actually sounds a little bit like Heighton's just lifting off slightly. I wonder if they are just conserving their engine right now. It would be quite a clever strategy to play, because if they can keep their engine temperatures a little bit cooler by not having to work that car as hard, and if they can conserve their fuel, because they do have the smallest tank here, then that might help them. But maybe I'm just exploring too many ideas here, because Heighton is just throwing it down the outside on the run down to T1, and it's now Mikkola who finds himself sitting behind, wondering what just happened. 0.4 of a second gap as well. Don't know if that's Mikkola just being a little bit slower on that lap. Maybe perhaps getting the corner entry slightly wrong. And Heighton has gone from being 0.2 seconds behind to 0.6 ahead, and seemingly opening the taps on the Bugatti. Approaching the 80th lap of the race now. The Bugatti here getting caught up a little bit with traffic there. And that might have allowed Mikkola to start making a little bit of ground. They are now 0.3 of a second behind. 0.2. So Heighton definitely lost a little bit of momentum there, taking evasive manoeuvres. So, meanwhile, Tolonen in P5 has Henry only 0.3 of a second behind. Is that Nurmi coming from behind them? I think it is. 2 laps down to Tolonen. And that is despite Tolonen having a pit stop. Tolonen continuing to make up a little bit of time here and there. The next target is potentially going to be Mikkola, but they are 16 seconds behind, so quite a big gap to overcome. Lindholm leading the race following the pit stop from Tolonen, and Haley Smith there as well, 6 seconds behind. So interesting that the Fiats, which were favoured for the podium here, are struggling today, and only Tolonen seems to be in a position to potentially get back towards that podium once they have overcome what is a pretty sizable gap, almost a whole minute behind at this point. Tolonen now in some traffic. You can see from their point of view they're looking for a way through, but that's going to be a spicy move if ever I saw them. I think they were thinking about it but decided to back off. One can only imagine the bravery of the drivers to come to a circuit like this in cars like this and wonder if a single tyre gives way in the middle of a corner, what would happen? But I guess that's what separates most people from the mentality of a racing driver. And that they just don't think about that tyre coming off. They're just interested in the next lap time, the next overtake. And as you can see, Tollenin has worked their way through the traffic and is now leading this pack, which includes you, Attila, McGears, and so on. And Tollenin is free now to hunt down the next car in front, which is Darling in the Bugatti. Again, I don't think they're fighting for position, of course, given Darling is down in P10. But Tollenin is definitely going to have to get through if they want to continue their advance to the top. So as we approach the halfway point in the race, the best lap in the race thus far is, I think, a 40.479, which has been set by Tollenin, and that puts them a pretty good margin ahead of any of the other cars here. Tollenin's last lap though was a 41.59 or 591. You see Tollenin attempting to find a way past the Darling Bugatti. It seemed almost serene from the cockpit view when they're going down the straights, but then into the corners things get very, very spicy quite quickly. You can see Tollenin just lifting off a little bit there potentially. As they tried to get through the traffic ahead. So there's at least 4 drivers: Elfontaine, Packinen, Kai Severston, and actually that's the broadcast band, so probably not a driver, but they're retiring from the race, or have retired from the race. And I think Kai Severston, given that they were the one who had some liquidity issues at Tours, I think Kai actually went bankrupt, and they might be in a little bit of trouble again following the race today, given they have another DNF to their name. '90th lap underway. Tollenin makes another overtake there. That time on Lazaro. And they're back up to 5th place now, 12.7 seconds behind Mikkola. We'll keep an eye on that as the race progresses and see how close Mikkola, or how close Tollenin is getting. Jay Lindholm just starting the 91st lap of the race. So, Heitinen and Mikkola. Bugatti versus Sunbeam. Sunbeam. With 0.4 of a second between the two of them. See the cars bouncing through those corners. Mikkola now getting a burst of speed as they seem to be opening the taps and getting a good exit from the corner. Dives right through past Heitinen, and I think that's Uatilla in the background now trying to find a bit of action as well. They're of course not fighting for position. They're 2 laps down relative to Heitinen and Mikkola, but in the mix nonetheless. And Heitinen is now back behind Mikkola's Sunbeam, potentially again for fuel saving reasons, given the speed at which that overtake happened. But Uatilla there as well, still maintaining formation as it were. 0.2 of a second separating these two now. See Heitinen there, just hanging in just behind Mikkola. But it's Nurmi who's just overtaken Darling, and Nurmi attempting to fight their way back up the grid. Another Fiat who struggled earlier on in the race. Tolonen, the other only Fiat further up, is still running in 5th place. But the Mikkola versus Heitinen battle continues. Uatilla there in the mix as well. If we go to the onboard from Uatilla's point of view, you can see how the battle ahead will appear from Uatilla's point of view. They'll be glad to have a little bit of company on the track here, I'm sure. See actually Uatilla going into that corner with a pretty high amount of speed and actually coming out pretty well as well. If it wasn't for the fact that they were 2 laps down, this would be a great battle between the 3 cars here. You can see Uatilla just easing off the throttle a little bit on the run down to the corner, as they take quite a high line through the corner. It's Heitinen and Mikkola continuing. So earlier on we said Tolonen was 12.7 seconds behind. That's now closed to 6.9 seconds. So if this continues for another few laps, it's going to be Tolonen joining in with these trio drivers here. And we might see another overtake coming through. Heitinen shadowing Mikkola lap after lap here, as they refuse to be denied the slipstream. Just about approaching half race distance now, about 2 more minutes to go. And we'll be into the second half of the race. Interesting to know from some of the drivers, if we get a chance to interview anyone at the end of the race, how the Bugatti fares at a track like this with its stability at top speed. I guess with the banked nature of the corners, that would probably be counteracted by the banking and the centrifugal forces. There was Tolonen just appearing momentarily in the number 9. So they are now 4.6 seconds behind. They're definitely closing quickly on Heitinen and Mikkola. Heitinen now having fallen a little bit further back from Mikkola. There's the number 9 rounding the corner in the background as they start to get closer and closer to Heitinen. I think when they appear, they won't be here for long, although they will have to find a way to overtake, and that may be more of a challenge. See Tolonen here in quite a large amount of traffic. They've got a few Bugattis, Delage and so on to get through before they can get back up to Heitinen and Mikkola. You can see just disappearing on the first corner over there. Meanwhile, Heitinen and Mikkola continue to battle. And whilst that traffic separates them from Tolonen, they may be able to stay safe for the time being. 101st lap of the race underway. Haley Smith in the pits though, and that means that they are now dropping down from what was 2nd place to 5th place, and looks to be 6th and potentially 7th to go as well. Tolonen's got through the 2 Bugattis, and I think that's Jay Lindholm, yes it is, who separates Tolonen from the likes of Heitinen and Mikkola. Henry also in the pits now. Tolonen only 3.7 seconds behind at this point. But Heitinen just can't quite seem to get past Mikkola. And it isn't for lack of trying. But if they can't break through soon, they are going to be at risk of Tolonen overtaking it once again. .3 of a second between the two of them now, slightly further back now, as Tolonen is only 3.3 seconds behind. Heitinen momentarily getting to 0.1 of a second. There's Tolonen in the mix. 2.2 seconds to go. At the rate that Tolonen's closing, he may not have to worry about Heitinen and Mikkola for too long, because he will be potentially able to breeze through relatively quickly. I think that's Attila that's being overtaken next, and there's Lindholm up ahead in the silver. Haley Smith in quite a collection of cars now, having pitted. Henry as well, having pitted earlier on, is down in 9th place, but Haley finds themselves in a bit of a cluster here, leading a group of cars, of which Mikkola and Heitinen appear to be within. And there's Tolonen, just seemingly slotting in behind Lindholm now. I don't know, they still have Uatilla in between. Actually seems like Lindholm and Uatilla are actually gaining on Heitinen and Mikkola, rather than it just being Tolonen getting closer. Tolonen seems to be getting closer as well as the other cars. 1.7 seconds in it now. Gonna make you move, Heitinen, now's the time. Ooh! Tolonen's had a blowout on the rear right. And they have definitely got an issue now. They're going to be back in the pits. But firstly, they've got to get that engine restarted and get the car turned around. You can see the rear right kicking up all kinds of dirt as they attempt to turn the car around, but they're going to be potentially right in the racing line if they're not careful. That's quite a large setback for them. And as they get their car off to the pits, fortunately not too far to go to the pits for Tolonen, but that isn't what they were hoping for, I'm sure. Lubomirski with Darling in pursuit, 0.4 of a second between the two of them. Tolonen in the background just entering the pit box. And you can see that their climb back to the top has not gone to plan, but they might be able to take on fuel at this point, which might see them through to the end of the race. So if it saves them a pit stop later, this may not be the end of the world. And they still retain quite a high position in the running order. Darling making a daring approach on the low down line on the corner. But the amazingly consistent battle between Mikkola and Heitinen continues after what seems to be 30 laps or so, and they aren't giving up anytime soon. But Darling is back on the attack with the number 66 Bugatti, forcing Lubomirski to go higher than he might otherwise want to go through the corner there. And Tolonen still in the pit lane. Tolonen just lost another position there, about to lose another one. Big shame for Tolonen following that accident. I don't know if it was a self-induced popped tyre there, but they did well not to fly off the top of the track. Lubomirski trying to find a way to slingshot past again. Tucks it in on the inside as they go into T1. Look how steep that banking is. That's incredible. As they come out of the banking to the back straight, it's 0.5 of a second separating the two of them. And slightly out to the slipstream there. Looks like the gap might be a little bit too big to overcome now. But here we have Peltonen and Nurmi, the two Fiats in the black livery, continue to try and catch up despite the strength of their cars here. They seem to be struggling. Meanwhile, Mikkola and Heittonen continue with Jay Lindholm in pursuit. Heittonen just seemingly unable to get past. They've done it before, but again, I'm not entirely sure whether this is tactics to conserve fuel or not. But either way, they'll be getting a lot of advantage from the slipstreaming. But it's Jay Lindholm who is also taking advantage of the situation. They are now slipstreaming heavily from Heittonen, and in theory might be able to get past if they time things just right. Once more across the line, it's Heittonen neck and neck with Mikkola this time. They seem to have found a way to get past, and Heittonen is now entering turn 1 ahead of Mikkola, and does so with a big burst of speed. Opened up a 0.6 of a second gap. This is why I wonder whether Heittonen has just been hanging back a little bit here. And now Heittonen's opened those taps fully and is exercising the full extent of the Bugatti's speed. Nurmi and Peltonen continue to be in close proximity. 0.3 of a second between the two of them, those two Fiats. ...119 laps completed, coming up to the 120th very shortly, and you can see that Mikkola is now 2.9 seconds behind Heittonen, with Jay Lindholm trying to overtake, not for position but just to extend their lead. You Attila in the mix as well, just behind Jay Lindholm there. Tolonen is down in 11th place though, and you can see now it's an order of running for the Fiats of P9 through to P11. So interesting, they've all co-located in the midfield here, despite being favourites to win the race. Yeah, it's quite incredible that Mikkola has managed to open up a 5-second, well, Heighton has opened up a 5-second gap to Mikkola. It does make me feel like he was sitting behind Mikkola on purpose, given how quickly that gap's opened. And if that was a play for fuel or something else, engine cooling potentially, then it seemingly has paid off as the 121st lap of the race is going on. So now a trio of Fiats and their supercharged engines now blasting down the back straight. It's the Peltonen, Nurmi and Tollenin special. Peltonen and Nurmi in the black, whereas Tollenin in the red shoots through. And they had their wheel reattached. Definitely interesting to see the Fiats, despite their power, struggling a little bit with the racing today. I think a burst tyre is a burst tyre, but interested to know what caused Nurmi to come into the pits so early on in the race. Looks like Tollenin is putting some pressure onto Magius as they go side by side down the back straight. Tollenin breezing through on the lower line, just tucking in behind Attila. And it's Magius who's now struggling to keep up with the likes of Tollenin's Fiat. Still a good chunk of the race to go, so Tollenin may yet have time to make some gains here, but you can see that they are now approximately 3 laps down to the race leader, and it's Jay Lindholm who is storming away here with the race despite having started in 10th place. See Tollenin is past Attila up front there. However, I believe they might be a little bit further back. Apologies, I stand corrected. It's not Attila, but might be Kossi. Yes, it is. It's Kossi. And therefore Tollenin isn't overtaking for position there, but they are now attempting to catch up with the next target. I think that was Lippi that they just overtaken there. Yes, it was. So Tollenin's back on the run, and they are attempting to catch up with Henry. Interesting though, you can see Tollenin relative to his two compatriots in the Fiat, Peltonen and Nurmi, seemingly getting the most out of the Fiat today, whereas Nurmi and Peltonen haven't quite managed to get that pace. So Tollenen's actually managed to put in a best lap, which is 40.083, so they're actually just on the cusp of a 39, and that would put them head and shoulders ahead of the field in terms of best lap time. Again, everyone getting a little bit more spread out now as we wait for Tollenin to close in on their next victim, which looks to be Henry. But at the moment, Peltonen and Nurmi continue their run. in relatively close proximity. Whilst we wait for these guys to get a little bit closer together, I'll just quickly run through the standings of the championship as it stands today. After the second round, Nurmi is leading the championship with 65 points in total, and they're followed quite closely by Heitinen, who is on 56 points, so a bit of a gap, but not insurmountable at this stage, given we're quite early on in the championship. Korkowski is in third place with 52 points, and then Henry, who is 7th today, is actually in 4th place overall with 51 points. Marcus Peltonen in 5th place with 47 points. He is followed by Rai Lazaro, joint in 6th place with Torsten Bale, both on 46 points. Johnny Lindholm, who's leading on the race today, is in 8th place overall in the championship with 42 points, and Lippi is running in 9th overall with 40 points. Federico Juan Quintero Magias is on 39 points, which puts him in 10th place overall. And then in 11th place you have Mosse Pereira with 38 points, followed by Kari Uatila on 37 points, which puts them in 12th. Darling, currently running in 13th place in the championship, is 14th on track right now. Oh, look at this. We've just got a little bit of action between Pereira and Hayley Smith. Talking of Hayley Smith, we've got Hayley Smith in 14th place with 35 points. Mountain Jar is 15th overall with 34 points. Tolonen, who is currently in 8th today, that we've been watching quite a lot, 16th overall in the championship right now with 32 points to their name. Christian Darger is on 17th position with 26 points, joint with Mikkola. Henrik Pekkanen is on 19th position in the championship, 22 points to the name, and they have unfortunately DNF'd today. Lumbago, 20th overall, 21 points, joint with JC Lemur, both on 21 points. And then Vukovic Christian is in 22nd position with 11 points. And then you have Kai Severston with 0 points to the name, unfortunately, but in 23rd position at the moment as of round number 2. Welcome to the chat, Danny. Yes, it's been pretty good racing so far. Quite a high risk of collisions here with the banked corners and the way the overtakes are working, but so far so good. Peltonen and Nurmi continue 0.3 of a second apart as they head up behind Rai Lazaro. They seem to be getting pretty even pace out of the Fiats here, but unable to keep up with the likes of Tolonen. With 133 laps gone, the track conditions are now optimum with 100%. Track temperatures decreased slightly to 35 degrees as the weather has moved to slightly less cloudy weather, and a 4 kilometre headwind now, which is increased from 1 kilometre an hour at the beginning of the practice session. While Lazaro now splitting the two Fiats. And talking of clean racing, there was a potential there for Nurmi to just clip the rear wheel of Rai Lazaro, but seemingly just avoided it at the last second. Meanwhile, Henry under pressure from Tolonen now, as Tolonen continues to make gains following their disastrous rear tyre loss in the final corner a few laps ago. Tolonen having to drop down a little bit to the lower side of the corner, which prevented them from potentially overtaking Henry there. But I think a few more laps, and Henry will be able to fend off Tollenin for a little bit longer, I think. But I think ultimately Tollenen's put up the pace today, potentially breaking a 39-second lap time. You can see their best lap time is 40.083. I wonder if they can get that to a sub 40-second, 39-second lap. Tollenen now making the overtake look easy as they blast on through on the inside line. A couple of car lengths ahead of Henry as they go into the first corner. And now the mighty supercharged Fiat can just open the taps a little bit more and break away as they continue to try and hunt down Uatilla. Of course, once Tollenen gets past Uatilla, they've got 1.2 laps of gap to close before they can get back to Pereira in the top 5. But if Tollenen can get back to P6, I think they'd probably be quite happy with that. So we're about a few laps away from 3/4 race distance. And at the moment, Lindholm is looking pretty solid out there at the front. Lippi and Lazzaro just trading places there as Lazzaro breaks through. Lippi, of course, in the number 20, in the 1922 version of the Fiat, I believe, so struggling for power today as they don't have quite as much speed at their disposal. So, Cossi has joined the championship as of the 3rd round, I believe. So that's why you don't see any points, I think, to their name in the standings, but seems to suggest that there is still scope to join the championship midway through the season. So, of course, if you are looking to get involved in CVR... Oh, look at that, that's very risky at the top of the corner there for Cossi. And they somehow managed to save that. That looked like it was going to go straight over the top. But as I was saying, if you are looking to get involved in some of the racing here at CVR, then there should be some information in the YouTube channel description how to join the Discord. And there's plenty more rounds of the season to go. But yeah, quite surprising as we approach 3/4 race distance that we haven't had any more drivers crash out. We've had 3 retirements so far. But as I believe, unlike in the practice session, I haven't seen anyone go over the top of the barrier yet. Henry in the number 12, who we saw battling with Tollenen earlier on, has now got another concern in their rearview mirror, which is Nurmi and Peltonen, although Nurmi seemingly just blasting straight past Peltonen's Fiat there. And I don't know if that's because Peltonen's slowing down potentially, but looks like Nurmi's decided to open the taps on the Fiat and is making a break for an overtake across Henry, which seems to have gone to plan as they enter T1. So Tolnin has closed that gap to Uatilla and is now a mere 0.5 of a second behind as they battle through the traffic. You can see Tolnin has got the number 66 driven by Darling up ahead, separating them from Uatilla, and Uatilla's 1 lap behind Pereira, so I think Tollin's got a pretty good chance of getting themselves back up to P6 at the very least. Let's see if they can navigate through the traffic though without incident. Very close indeed behind Darling there, and there's quite a group ahead of these guys now, which is seemingly going to be a bit spicy through the first corner. Group of about 6 cars now. 7 cars, I stand corrected. But Tollinen's taken the inside line here and is seemingly trying to shoot down alongside as many of these cars as they possibly can as they make a break for it, trying to get past the number 66 driven by Darling. Didn't quite get there in time, however. And there's 3/4 race distance, 145 laps completed. Bit of flame spitting from the back of the Bugatti, and oh god, that was so close. Blue Bugatti there, almost flying over the top. Tollinen now on the inside, takes the opportunity there to break on past Darling's number 66 Bugatti, and the Bugatti ahead. That might be Pereira. Yes, it is. So Tollinen now just has to get past Uatilla. Meanwhile, Uatilla is closing in on Pereira. That's 38 seconds. It was 1.2 laps a little while ago, so the group has closed. Peltonen trying to get past Henry still. They can catch up with their teammate, well, not teammate, but fellow Fiat driver Nurmi. How long will Uatilla be able to hold off the advance of the number 9 Fiats driven by Tolinen? Seemingly not long enough, as Tolinen comes up quickly behind Uatilla and opens the taps on that supercharged Fiat and seems to be getting on past Uatilla on the run down to T2. I don't think he'll be quite up ahead though by the time... Well, yes, he is. Will he have the speed though to carry it out of the corner and keep Uatilla at bay? Uatilla 0.2 of a second. That's switching to 0.3 though, so it's going the wrong direction. Tolinen might be safe for the time being. And now Tolinen has a 37-second gap to close before they can get to Pereira. Heitinen's managed a 40.647. Haley Smith a 40.718. Nurmi actually doing a 40.272. That's the second fastest lap. Just had a notification saying that the number 53 car had contact with Lubomirski. But seemingly they seem to be okay. Good to see. Nurmi now under threat. Or sorry, Uatilla now under threat from Nurmi. as the other Fiat comes blasting through. This burst of speed from Nurmi at this stage seems to be maybe a strategy to just keep things under control to the latter half of the race and then open the taps and try and catch up. Could be a strategy for engine management or temperatures. Looks like Darling is battling with the likes of the Fiat ahead. See the cars weaving back and forth right on the edge of the lip of that corner. It must be an absolutely nerve-wracking experience for anyone to do that in reality. And there we have it. Jay Lindholm in the pits, finally, and 152 laps, having led the race for a significant proportion. They are now going to find themselves probably dropping down to third place at least, as they have Mikkola just blasting on past. So now Haley Smith, coming back from 1.4 laps down, is going to be able to catch up at least a little bit. But I suspect Lindholm will be back under power and back in the race shortly, following what would probably be the last pit stop of the race for them. So Haley Smith only 33 seconds behind. I mean, even if Lindholm gets out the pits right now, that probably won't be enough time to get up to full speed. And Haley's actually managed to close. I mean, it's one pit stop was about 2 laps worth of stoppage time here. Here comes Haley Smith now. 12 seconds. 10. Will Lindholm be back under power? You can see that it's cost him about 2 laps almost on Haley Smith now. And he's back on the gas. So, will Lindholm be able to close the gap again and get himself back onto the podium before the race is through? 154 laps currently completed. Pereira just appearing there in the number 11 Bugatti is close behind Lindholm, but probably not close enough at this point. And once Lindholm gets going, it'll be interesting to see whether they can close the gap on the likes of Heitinen, who is now the race leader. So here we have Lindholm, 22 seconds behind Haley Smith at this point. That's 1.5 laps down from Mikkola. And you can see Lindholm's wasting no time overtaking who I suspect is Henry. No, it's not Henry, it is Mikkola. So trying to unlap themselves. And Lindholm's through again. They seem to get a massive amount of speed out of this delage. Coming up to the 160 lap mark, we have still a pretty good fight for the championship, well, for the podium going on. Heinzen and Mikkola are pretty solid at the moment, but who will get that third spot? There's relative gaps between the next few cars, but not insurmountable at this point in the race, and we may yet see some additional pit stops. I don't think we've seen Ferrara in the pit stops, for example. I'm not sure when Heitinen last pit stopped it either. The timing board seems to be giving me slightly erroneous results on this front, because it says that Heittinen's pitted 7 times and Mikkola has pitted 54 times, which I suspect is inaccurate, given that would probably put Mikkola well at the back of the race. Ah, thank you for the explanation. I was suspecting that because Mikkola has been cutting it quite close to the pit lane quite a few times, especially when they were battling with Heitinen a few minutes ago, and I did suspect that that might be part of the issue. But with 161 laps completed, Mikkola is 17 seconds behind Heitinen right now, and I think it's going to be a question of pit stops and accidents at this stage, which will have a more impactful bearing on the race conclusion. But Lindholm here has pitted a few laps back, and they don't have that far to go to close the gap to the podium again. Of course, they do have to get 21 seconds closer to Haley Smith to guarantee a spot back on the podium. But whether Mikkola or Heitinen will be pitting is the key question. And that's my question being answered right there. Heitinen's come into the pits at 162 laps, and that means that Mikkola now goes through to lead the race. Haley Smith and Lindholm will undoubtedly get past Heitinen as well. And that puts Lindholm in a pretty good position back on the podium. Mikkola, on the other hand, may yet need to pit themselves, and in the Sunbeam here, I'm not sure when that might come. We know that Heitinen's Bugatti fuel tank is smaller, but will Mikkola be coming in anytime soon? Not this lap, but we shall wait with bated breath to see when that happens. If they can push it to the end of the race, then I'm sure they will try. This might explain why Heitinen was slipstreaming behind Mikkola for such a long time. Heitinen's still not underway yet. Yep, there they go. They just got started, so Lindholm's going to be coming up soon. And I think with the speed still building up on Heitinen's side. It means that Lindholm, who's coming up there in the background, will be able to get past relatively quickly. There's Uatilla. Or that might be Kossi, actually. No, there was Uatilla. But there's Lindholm, just going through on the outside. That puts them back on the podium. So Lindholm in a pretty strong position now to finish this race in second, depending on when Mikkola decides to come in for that pit stop, which must be coming up at least some time in the next 5 or 6 laps, I would say. We're going to hang here with Mikkola for a little bit longer and just see where this takes us. They're about a lap ahead of Lindholm by the looks of it, because you can see Lindholm just ahead. But Mikkola's here potentially running on fumes. I'm not sure if we can see from the interior cameras. I can't quite see. But yeah, fuel might be an issue. I know that they're using less than the Fiats. Tolnin, who was making great gains earlier on, is also closing a little bit further in on Heittinen. There may even be time for Tolnin and the Fiat to make a comeback, but they will have some catching up to do. No sign of slowing down just yet. Mikkola always takes a slightly different line out of that final corner, cutting a little bit closer to the pits than any other driver seems to do, but given they're winning this race, it seems to be a strategy that works. Headwind has reduced slightly to just 1 kilometre an hour now, so it doesn't seem to be going to be having much of an issue at that speed, but track conditions have improved to 100% as of a while ago, and the temperature back to 36 degrees. Still no sign of Mikkola slowing down for the pits. Meanwhile, the midfield remains pretty close, with Pereira down to Peltonen being not too substantially different at this stage. There's plenty of laps left to go, so things could significantly change in the midfield between now and the race conclusion. I am interested to see though when Mikkola comes in, if at all. I assume they're going to have to, given they haven't had a pit stop in quite some time. Heitinen's pit stop seems to have paid off quite nicely, with them still retaining 4th position. Nurmi just getting past Pereira there. Whilst Tolnin remains 20 seconds behind Heittinen. That's Kossi, who is new to the championship as of this round. Currently running in P13. But here's Lindholm being pressured somewhat by Heittinen's Bugatti. And I'm assuming that's Uatilla. Yes, it is. Lindholm now definitely feeling the pressure from the Bugatti. 0.4 of a second. 0.3 slipstream definitely kicking in now for Heittinen. And the Bugatti trying to throw it down the inside, going very low down on the curve. Cuts in ahead of Lindholm. Lindholm tries to cut back, but gosh, I thought it was going to be quite a significant amount of contact there, but they managed to avoid it. 171 laps. Lindholm finds himself back down in 4th place right now. Podium position not yet completely secured. And Cossey's just gone into the pits as well. Still no pit stop from Mikkola. You can see from Lindholm's onboard perspective that they are doing their level best here, but apart from what seems to be a little bit of netcode induced rubber banding, there's potentially not a lot that Lindholm can do, given the Bugatti is probably a little bit faster, I think, at this point. Lindholm just setting their best lap there, though, with a 40.808. Lindholm still hasn't got close to Tolonen's lap, though, and Tolonen hasn't broken the 40-second barrier just yet. Lindholm now tucking in behind 2 Bugattis. And Heitinen and Lindholm continue to blast on through here. Car just coming out of the pit lane there. I think that's Cossey. 174 laps in the bank as we approach the closing stages of this race. It's unclear whether Lindholm's going to have what it takes to get past Heitinen. Heitinen is getting a little bit further ahead, but hasn't quite managed to shake off Lindholm just yet. Lindholm's got a little bit of traffic now in the sense of the 53 Bugatti. Losing a little bit more speed now as he had to deal with the traffic in the mid-corner there. Definitely opening a bit of a gap now to Heitinen. That's a 1 second gap. Mikkola, though, still has to pit at some point, I believe. Haley Smith pitted a while ago, so it could come down to Haley Smith potentially winning this race unless Heitinen can close the gap, and there's a 18-second delta there. Tolonen doesn't seem to be getting that much closer to Lindholm. Uatila and Pereira, though, coming over the start-finish line, and Uatila seems to be edging a little bit closer to the Bugatti. Will they be able to get through? Pushing as hard as they can. They're not quite alongside just yet, but they do have the high line now going through the corner. Although the door may have just been closed by Pereira. They're not entirely, actually, so Pereira does seem to have left a little bit of breathing room here for Uatila to take a slightly more high-speed line through the corner there, coming through the final bend. And now it's only 0.1 of a second as they go almost side by side through T1. And once again, the high part of the corner belongs to Uatila here, and that seems to be definitely helping them as they come out of the corner a whole second ahead of Pereira. And now we can see Mikkola, who is the race leader currently, but I suspect they're going to need to pit soon. Seemingly not this lap, though. So with 178 laps completed, Mikkola is seemingly not in need of a pit stop just yet. I imagine they are going to have one. We'll wait here until they do. But they are still pushing, and Haley Smith is still 1.2 laps behind, so Lindholm is almost 4 seconds behind Heitinen now. That may mean that they're going to struggle to get back to that podium spot, given that Heitinen's completed their pit stop already. Don't think Haley's going to be coming in again, so that may mean that unless subject to any collisions or accidents, Haley Smith might be fine for a P2 at least, but if Mikkola does have to pit, then that will definitely guarantee Haley Smith an opportunity to sneak on through to the first spot in this race. You can see Darling in the number 66 pink Bugatti jostling for position there. Mikkola's in the midst of a bit of traffic at the moment. Still not heading to the pit lane. And also finding themselves going toe-to-toe with other drivers. I think that's Henry. That's the one we're seeing right now, but Mikkola's through. And it's Henry and Pereira actually now who are fighting for position down in P8 and 9. Henry, of course, in the number 12 green Sunbeam. You can see the line Mikkola takes there. It's so unique compared to everyone else, and tricks me into thinking they might be heading to the pits. Nurmi in the pits, though. That's surely going to hurt their chances at this stage in the race. There might be fuel again, because Nurmi did pit earlier on, quite a while ago. That definitely means that you, Attila, Henry, Pereira, Peltonen, etc. are probably all going to get through and past Nurmi. Nurmi's going to definitely end up around the lower to midfield. Mikkola, though, continues unperturbed by the pending pit stop, and if there is one coming, I mean, at this stage they might be able to push it into the race if I've entirely got my pit stop information wrong. Of course, the live timing screen not telling me the information I need in terms of their pit stops. Let me just see actually whether I can spot that information at all. It doesn't say they've completed any long stops. Mikkola and Henry here in close formation in the number 12 Sunbeams. Tollenin seemingly unable to bridge this gap to Lindholm that they've been trying to close for some time now. We do have a little bit of traffic from the likes of Lubomirski. Maybe slowing them down somewhat. What I'd actually like to do is, from Henry's point of view, is as they come through the final corner, I'd like to see what that looks like for Henry. Oh gosh, they're so close. Henry going past Nurmi, is that? Yeah. Could be Peltonen actually. But actually, what we can do is we can use Darling's point of view here. As they come round the final corner, Mikkola just goes much further to the left. It looks like Darling's actually got a run on Mikkola now, even though they aren't fighting for position. But is that Mikkola starting to slow down? Henry having to dodge to the inside there to get past Mikkola. .187 laps, and if Mikkola pitted now it would be pretty devastating for their race chances, so I'm hoping that they don't actually have to, given they've been running in the top spot now for a little bit of time. Whether Lindholm can come back from this point is unclear. I think it's going to be a bit of a tall order, although it'll be interesting to see if Hayley Smith finishes this in the top spot. At least they'll be taking home P2, I would have thought. Unless Heitinen can close this 10-second gap to Hayley Smith in the next 12 or so laps. Peltonen and Pereira. With Peltonen slipping through there in the final corner. So, 190 laps almost. We'll be soon into the last 10, and it will be a question of does Mikkola need to pit or not. Still no sign yet. So 190 laps, only 10 laps to go as the race here starts to enter its closing phases. That's Sidges. And at the moment, Mikkola is in a pretty commanding position. Hayley Smith starting to lose a little bit of time compared to Heitinen, but actually closing in on Mikkola. Mikkola was 1.2 laps ahead. That's now measured in seconds, with about 40 seconds, which is about a lap to be honest, only separating Hayley Smith from the top spot in this race. I wonder if Mikkola's plan is to finish this race on fumes. Coming down the start-finish straight, you can see Mikkola easing up behind the Bugatti in front. Fantastic display of driving here today, generally from the grid. There's been a couple of minor bumps and scrapes here and there, and you know, a couple of retirees, with 3 of them not finishing the race, but the majority of the grid have done very well to avoid serious incident. No one, as far as I'm aware, has flown over the top. And 194 laps completed now. Mikkola is still in a strong position here. Lubomirski just coming up alongside or behind the 53 Magirs. I believe Tolonin's in the mix there, the number 9. These guys going 3 wide through the corner, almost. Slotting into single file though, which is a wise decision. So 195 laps. I'm suspecting at this point that Mikkola does not need to pit at the end of this race, before the end of the race, because otherwise they probably would have done so by now. And Haley Smith 37 seconds behind Mikkola, so closing, but not closing fast enough, I think, to win at this point, unless there's something significantly that's going to impact Mikkola's race at this point. Aitonen though, still 8 seconds behind Haley Smith, so that podium may be remaining as you see it right now. But it's this group here. They're not fighting necessarily for position apart from Lubomirski and Magirs, but Tolonin is in the mix here as well. And is that Pereira? Yes it is. There's also Rosen as well in the mix. But Mikkola, 197 laps, not long to go. It would be absolutely awful if they ran out of fuel before the end of the race. Looks like Tolonin going 3 wide there with a couple of other cars as they come down the start-finish straight. Looking for a way through in the Fiat. Hasn't quite found it yet. Here we go, 199 laps about to be set here by Mikkola. And that is highly likely, meaning that they don't need any more pit stops. They are being challenged right now by a Bugatti, which must be a little bit of a hair-raising experience, given where they are in the race. And I'm sure they'll be keen to avoid any drama at this point in the proceedings. Looks like Rilazaro and Cossi having a little bit of a battle in the closing stages. Let's stay with Mikkola though, because I want to make sure we see the last lap, and Mikkela's now begun that last lap this very second. About 40 seconds separating Mikkela from the win. In the background you can see Tolonen going toe to toe with Lubomirski. But for now, Mikkela just entering the final corner on the final lap. And as they come over the line, they have finished the race in first place. Very well done to Mikkela there. Haley Smith looking to be picking up a P2. Tolonen locked in on a P5 there. And here comes Haley Smith for the P2 finish. Well done, Haley Smith. Heitinen in the background grabs P3. And Lindholm, who led the race for such a significant proportion of the race, finishing in P4. Oh wow, good to know, Danny. So a Sunbeam won by 50 seconds. Well, there we have it. We've just recreated history. Well, congratulations to everyone who competed in the race today. That was absolutely fantastic display of driving. Thank you, Danny. Hope you enjoyed it. Now, I believe there may be some post-race interviews, but I shall double check whether anyone will be coming down to say hello. Otherwise, the stream will be wrapped up. I think that may be the end of the session. There's no interviews. Just corresponding with Garamond or Tolonen, as we know them from the in-game name. Hey, Garamond. How was your race? Yeah, tell me about your spin in the I think second corner, wasn't it? You looked like you lost your rear right tire. Was that just contact related, or was it just pushing the car a little bit too hard? Ah, okay. Just one second, Garamond. I'm being told in the chat that they can't quite hear your voice in the stream, so just give me 1 second to make sure I'm pulling through the correct. There we go. Try that, please.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so yeah, sorry for anyone who missed it. Garamond was just telling me that they took a slightly too aggressive line in one of the corners during an overtake, and that led to the rear right puncture. So with these cars, Garamond, if you take too an aggressive a line, is that enough to is it overheating the tyre, or is it simply putting too much pressure on it?
Well, kind of both, depending on your setup, of course. But it's just the biggest risk is that if you lose the control, so that you will get to a power slide or spin, then it will overheat too much and probably will explode.
Yeah, I was amazed actually watching that you managed to A, not fly off the top of the ramp, but B, I think you avoided any significant amounts of contact as well. So did you have much trouble? I mean, it was quite convenient timing as for where the accident happened to get back to the pit lane. How much of an impact do you think that had on your race overall?
You mean that incident?
Yep.
Well, I think I lost like 2 minutes with that, so it's like a couple of laps, maybe more.
Okay, so could be worse.
Yeah, I think I would have been on a podium probably without it, but
Yeah, you were making some pretty significant gains in the lead up to that incident, so it was a shame to see all that hard work undone. Did you happen to see? I believe it was Pekkanen and Lazaro ending up in the ditch.
you know, I didn't see it. I just saw two cars on the ditch and
Well,
wondered what happened, but I didn't see it.
it was quite an entertaining moment because they ended up both spinning off the track and getting caught in the ditch, and then having been unable to get back onto the track, they ended up kind of one was reversing down the straight backwards, the other one going forwards along the fence. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
I think Pekkanen couldn't quite manage to recover, but Lazaro managed to get all the way down the straight and back onto the tarmac and nurse the car back to the pit lane. But a great display of perseverance on their part.
Yeah, it's pretty steep ditch. It's really impossible to get over.
Yeah, especially
Back
with a missing rear right tyre, which I think Lazaro had, so they were kind of spinning their wheels, not getting anywhere quickly.
Oh yeah.
So I've been
Sounds
told
fun.
in chat by Danny that in real life this race was won by a Sunbeam as it was today, and by about 50 seconds, which is not too far off what we had in the race today. So I think we may have just recreated history.
Yeah, quite accurately. That's nice.
But tell us what's coming up next in the championship then, and what's the next track going to be, and which cars do you think will be the most favoured for that particular circuit?
Well, yeah, we are moving on forward in a timeline and to the year 2024, and I believe it was Monza the next track, so it's pretty fast there also, and I think it's pretty even probably. Well, there will be Alfa Romeo is coming newcomer to the series with the new P2 car, which is probably the fastest one out of the pack.
Ah, okay. So do you think you'll see some of the drivers selling up and moving over to those?
Yeah, for sure. And of course, the updated Fiat is also pretty fast in that year.
Very cool. Well, looking forward to it, and hopefully we get some good racing there as we had today. So let's look forward to the future rounds and see how the teams do. Looks like there might be a couple of people with some DNFs today, so let's see whether they have any financial pressures on their teams and need to get some additional funding.
Yeah, for sure there will be some hardships. Especially, I'm I'm pretty sad about Kai, and he has been so unlucky so far, and yet another DNF if I'm not mistaken. So
No, that's correct. So hopefully that doesn't keep them out. What happens out of interest if someone runs out of funding? Do they get to continue in the racing, or do they have to get like a new car with new funding?
yeah, they kind of are declared bankrupt and lose all their points and the cars they possess, and they just kind of get the new funding then and start all over from the scratch.
Ah, so their points basically just get wiped out and they start over from that perspective, but they can carry on racing.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of a blank slate.
Very good, very good. Well, yeah, a pleasure as always, Garamond, to stream one of your races, and thank you for all the hard work that you put into organising these. I'm sure the community enjoys them as much as I enjoy watching them. But yeah, looking forward to the next round at Monza, and we'll see how things get shaken up by the introduction of the new cars, and see where things turn next.
Yeah, it will be really interesting, and a big thanks to you also for commentating these quite long races.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Well, yeah, I was a little bit taken aback when it was 200 laps of Styges today, but with 40 seconds a lap, it goes quite quickly. So it was a good race. Really looking forward to the next races coming up.
Yeah, it's pretty intense, and it's only gets better from this on. So stay tuned.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you Garamond again. And I'll catch you next race.
Yeah, thank you, and bye bye.